Civilization began with agriculture. And though humanity has changed significantly, agriculture still remains very important. In certain countries, its significance is more obvious. But the reality is that every country in the world depends on agriculture for one thing or the other. Many raw materials, whether it's cotton, sugar, wood, or palm oil, come from agriculture. These materials are essential to major industries in ways many people aren't even aware of, such as the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, diesel fuel, plastics, and more. In fact, raw materials are so important in production that the economic health of a country strongly depends on how many raw materials it possesses. The agricultural industry is one of the biggest sources of employment, and in many ways, it's actually booming. But beyond all this, agriculture drives innovation and technology. Because healthy agriculture is so essential to a country's well-being, it's been the setting of some of the most exciting innovations in technology. Through artificial intelligence, blockchain software, gene manipulation, and more, scientists and farmers have been figuring out ways to increase crop productivity, use less water, and reduce negative impacts on the environment. For scientists and tech companies, agribusiness is one of the most fascinating and productive fields to work in. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund is scaling up interventions in the content component of higher education through curriculum review, which would include entrepreneurship education and innovation. These are the chronicles of the journey to institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Hello, and welcome to this edition of TETFund, The Paradigm Shift. I am Stanley Bentu. According to the Africa edition of University World News, World Bank data pinpoints the percentage of unemployed Nigerians with advanced education at 13.6% in 2016 and 15.3% in 2019. Now, this is worrisome because it translates to a bulging, youthful, energetic, unemployed population with no contribution to the economic growth of the country. The link between the students we train today and economic growth is the triple helix model, which links government, the academia, and industry together. But for this to work, we need to produce a particular kind of graduate. A graduate who understands the principles of entrepreneur education, regardless of his or her core discipline. Architect Sonny Echono, the Executive Secretary of TETFund, tells us more.
But what we got wrong in this country is the orientation. So we are focusing, and part of my priorities while I'm here is on entrepreneurship education, which is different from entrepreneurship as a vocation. Entrepreneurship education teaches you how to identify opportunities, teaches you how to move into that lucrative field of wealth creation. There are others who probably the challenge may not just be funding alone, but even being able to manage relationships and manage people, group dynamics and all of that. Then taking risks, being patient to see how you actually grow a business. Knowing when to invest, how. And the structures that you need to put in place to ensure that your business succeeds.
Well, those were very interesting words from the ES. But how does that concept apply in the field of agriculture? Nigeria remains a net importer of food for many reasons. First of all, the majority of agriculture-focused operations in the country are small scale, with limited innovation regarding inputs, harvesting, processing, distribution, and access to markets. Now, the vast majority of people engaged in agriculture operate at the subsistence level. They're uneducated and have limited access to training. But the Executive Secretary of TETFund has different ideas about what direction Nigeria needs to take to achieve its aspirations in agriculture. Pay close attention to the lines that he is blurring between discussions on tertiary education and the nation's economy. Now, as far as he is concerned, they're pretty much one and the same.
There are many sectors in our economy today that are not explored at all. But we need to grow this economy. That is the biggest challenge we have as a people. We must grow this economy. We cannot rely on the limited resources revenue we are deriving for this fast expanding population. So we must activate all the various sectors. Only yesterday I had a conversation with a group that came in, and we identified in agricultural value chains alone, we identified 12 new areas we need to move into. And I can just hint you about a few of these. Look at the amount of things we waste in terms of post-harvest losses. Now it's season for oranges, for mangoes, and you find out that half of them are wasted because we've not learned how to preserve, we've not learned to convert them. We are earning very little from our agricultural produce because our value addition potential is very low. But we need to develop it.
Now let's delve deeper into the world of agriculture and view it through the lens of a businessman that has an eagle eye and an instinctive alertness to opportunities. This alertness is part of the education that Nigeria must provide for its students at the tertiary level. It's just like being a professional footballer. You can have all of the talent in the world and all of the money backing your team. But if you do not have match fitness, pitch awareness, and ability to read the game and the swiftness to react to your opponent's play, you will not win any trophies or titles. So let's talk about agribusiness.
Agriculture is the most important sector in the Nigerian economy. It employs 60% of Nigerians, including many rural women, and contributes to up to 35% of the country's GDP. The term agribusiness simply refers to the breadth of businesses engaged in all aspects of agriculture, from the provision of inputs such as seeds and fertilizer, to farming, processing, marketing, distribution and retail sales. It emphasizes the notion that for agriculture to be sustainable, it needs to be viewed as a business.
It is not magic that farmers are some of the richest people in America, and only 5% of that population is feeding the entire country. Here, our farmers are the dregs of our society. But if we can, through education, through research, promote agriculture on a commercial scale, using irrigation, using simple tools and machines, providing the right extension services, so that you can also educate the farmers through the right policies, making credit available at the right time, linking them up with markets. All of these are creating jobs across the value chains. Everything I mentioned here has the potential for creating wealth and jobs. They will put our people to work. They will earn a decent living, not salaries for doing nothing. And they will create opportunities for others to also, because as you are developing your agriculture, the transportation sector is it's expanding. Somebody has to transport those goods and services, even people to provide labor in working in those factories for the value addition. That's how economies grow.
Africa's agriculture and food systems are central to its jobs agenda. Agriculture remains the main sector of employment. Many successful programs aimed at integrating young people into agricultural activities have a strong awareness-raising component. Young rural people commonly underestimate the potential of agriculture and value addition as a job.
From primary production all the way to the dining table, there's a lot that you can do. You can stay with primary production, which is just what is being done locally. You can go into value addition. You can go into provision of service, such as mechanization, such as monitoring and evaluation, such as administration, that is documentation for farmers. You can go into spray service. You can go into input supplies such as fertilizer, herbicide, you name them, insecticides and the rest. So there's a lot. You can go into exports. And the big one, which is processing, value addition.
In a bid to address the drift towards a monocultural crude oil economy, the Nigerian government began to encourage the large-scale commercial production of food crops in 1975, having earlier enjoyed a boom in plantation farming. The Nigerian government, as a matter of policy, has encouraged large-scale farming since 1975. This kind of farming offers a cocktail of opportunities for not only farmers, but researchers, industrialists, marketers, salesmen, advertisers, and retailers. It is an entire value chain. But what opportunities does this have on the Nigerian economy?
I remember when I was in agriculture, for example, we realized that Nigeria was losing 35% of value at source of its cotton just from packaging. So creating a factory that makes jute bags, and we have them all growing everywhere here around us, but making jute bags alone will increase our earnings by 35%. That is an easy way of investing. And so you can see that. Then look at this area of mechanization, for example. You see on several videos and YouTube channel, simple tools that the Chinese, the Indians, and all sorts of people use to make agriculture less hazardous. The manual way we go about it affects our yield. The drudgery associated with discourage young people from farming. So you have only old people doing it. But if you use machines, it will be convenient, it will be easier, it will be more efficient. Then by the time we adopt other technological processes, such as irrigation, for example. With irrigation, you can cultivate 3 times in a year. That translates directly into yield and income for the farmer. With use of inputs like fertilizer, and which is basically getting people to understand the nature of soil and the best type of soil crop to plant there, when to plant, how to use the fertilizer, how to space your crop. Good agronomic practices alone can increase our yield, our current yield, 5-fold. When you discount for all the other cost elements, that is about 4-fold increase in earnings for farmers. Me and you will go into farming if we know we are going to be able to make that level of profit.
Education is where it all begins. First, Nigeria must learn to introduce the business aspect of agriculture in teaching and learning.
Basically, what they learn in school is the theory, the science behind what is being done. But if you go to some of the colleges of agriculture, the universities of agriculture, that's where it stops. Yes, maybe they have some practical farms here and there where they just go see the crops or see the animals, and that's where it stops. But the business side is different. The business side is them having the understanding that they can spot an opportunity, that they can innovate, they can change and tweak the way something is done and be able to make money from that. So it's very important they have entrepreneurship education as well.
Education policies at the top levels of government and curricula at tertiary institutions should be targeted at transforming agribusiness in Nigeria for inclusive recovery, job creation, and poverty reduction. Policy reforms and investment priorities of TETFund are being fine-tuned to encourage agribusiness.
I see TETFund doing a lot on campus, providing infrastructure. They can also provide the infrastructure for those businesses. For instance, they can build a poultry on campus that can house 20,000 birds. It's a TETFund property. It can be manageable. We know it's a business. So it can be packaged in a way that TETFund gets something, also the students get something, the consultants get something.
African farmers have lived and worked as subsistence farmers for far too long. At the subsistence level, we have shrinking and depleted farms, an aging population with limited interest from the youth to engage in agriculture. So there's an urgent need to explore the potential profitability of every agriculture investment and to determine whether it makes financial sense to proceed in the short, medium, and long term. Take a look at this report, which underscores the importance of research and development in agribusiness.
Imagine a country that irrigates plants with salt water. A country that has managed to turn an arid, barren desert to lush fields of crops. A country that, despite being located in one of the driest and most arid places on earth, has been able to obtain an almost unlimited supply of water. Desert agriculture in Israel is one of the country's greatest successes and something at which Israel leads the world. The Negev Desert, which covers over 60% of the country, has actually shrunk in size over the past century as agricultural activity has turned sand into green fields, the opposite to the desertification trend which much of the rest of the world is battling to prevent. Even in the depths of Israel's Negev Desert are gems of agriculture amid the harsh, dry conditions and relatively mineral-deprived sandy soil. Israeli company TETFund invented modern drip irrigation technology in the 1960s. This allowed the precious and scarce water resources of the desert to be used at extreme limits to grow crops. A unique agricultural research station in the Ramat Negev region is working together with the farmers from the region to develop strains of crops that are suited to the Negev's climate, water resources, and soil conditions, and test new techniques from growth. If you were ever in doubt of the power of research and development, here is your proof of concept. In Nigeria, conflicts between farmers and herders can be understood as a problem of access to land. The beginning of the 21st century witnessed an expansion of the population. Deteriorating environmental conditions, desertification, and soil degradation have further compounded the problem, leading to violence, death, and fear of working in farmlands. But what if we didn't have to rely solely on large farmlands for agribusiness? What if innovation has provided a modern solution? Hydroponic farming is the method of growing plants without soil. It is basically an innovative method of growing plants without the traditional potting and soil mix.
Hydroponics is actually a word coined from the Greek word. Hydro means water, then ponics means work. So hydroponics simply means water work. Sometimes in 1953, a professor from the University of California called Professor Geriko actually coined the word hydroponics. Hydroponics, it's an old technology. It's virtually over 2,000 years old. It's a technology used by King Nebuchadnezzar, if you still remember the Hanging Garden of Babylon, one of the ancient wonders of the world. So that's basically what hydroponic is. It's growing crops without soil. If you remember, or if you can just picture water hyacinth on water and all that, a system whereby you grow crop without soil. But it has two classifications. We have pure hydroponics, where water is the substrate or the medium for growing, and we have soilless culture. Soilless culture is you are not using soil, but you are using something called substrate. If you look at what we are doing here, in this vertical growth system, this is a soilless culture. Basically, here we are using a material that we actually formulated. It's formulated from rice husk. You know, rice husk. So we are using this as a substrate for our soilless culture.
As reported by the FAO, agriculture remains the foundation of the Nigerian economy. Despite the presence of oil in the country, it is the main source of livelihood for most Nigerians, which is rapidly finding deep roots in Nigeria. What are the benefits of this to the national economy?
One of it is using hydroponics, you actually get to save on land and water. Can I say this? Hydroponic only require about 10% of the amount of water you need normally for irrigation. Look at it, if you plant, generally, you wet, or let me use this word. In this part of the world, we depend on rainfall. Yet, plant or crops does not actually need rainfall. What they need is water. And water can be gotten from irrigation. Now, normally, when rain falls or you use the basic form of irrigation used, water gets to soak the soil and goes to the roots. So, about 70% of that water is actually not useful because it does not get to what we call the rhizosphere. That's the root zone where the plant needs the water. Using hydroponics, we give the exact amount of water to the root zone of the crop.
As the curricula of Nigerian universities, polytechnics and colleges of education are upgraded to produce entrepreneurial professionals, including in agriculture, could hydroponics be the future? And what are the possibilities for Nigeria?
We do hydroponics in a controlled environment called the greenhouse. In the greenhouse, let me give an example of about 240 square meter. We harvest the amount of crop that you need 10,000 square meter to grow in the open field. In an open field in Nigeria, the average harvest of tomato, for example, is about 4 tons, at the best 5 tons per hectare. That is the exact amount that we harvest in a 240 square meter greenhouse. 240 square meter greenhouse. The same thing with pepper. Using hydroponics, you get to cultivate the crop that are not easily cultivated in Nigeria.
In order to make Nigeria's agriculture productivity more sufficient, the government, academia and the private sector need to develop ways to enhance competitiveness in the international market and improve the efficiency of domestic production. With the help of the leaders in this West African country and the intervention of TETFund in public tertiary institutions, farming productivity can improve enormously. Agriculture in Nigeria is so important to the economy and people's daily lives that despite its setbacks, it will inevitably prosper.
A public opinion poll result released by NOI Polls Limited revealed that although 78% of the respondents disclosed that they or their immediate family members engage in farming, only 15% indicated that they are involved in commercial farming. Now, the implication of this is the unavailability of cash crops like groundnuts, cocoa, rubber, palm oil produce, etc. for export purposes. Addressing a group of international journalists in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Capitol, as a prelude to the Global Entrepreneurship Summit at The Hague in the Netherlands, J. Scott Angle, the United States Director of the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, argued that a large number of farmers in Africa were involved in subsistence agriculture, thereby making commercial food production in the region difficult. Subsistence farming, though noble and essential for survival, has perpetuated poverty in Africa, with many farmers still using crude implements and tools to grow food. Now, in 2019, only approximately 138 billion naira was able to be allocated to agriculture in Nigeria's budget, representing just 1.5% of the total budget. And that was even lower than the 173 billion of the previous year. The 2019 figure represents 690 naira per Nigerian each year. It's a matter of moving from small-scale subsistence agriculture to more commercial agriculture. There are only two ways of doubling food production, and those are through investment and science. And that is the paradigm shift. Join us again on the next edition of the program. Until then, thank you for stopping by. Good night.